this is Christina Bure. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Bure, and today we're going to be talking about President Donald Trump announcing his bid for 2024. We were expecting it, and it has happened, and we'll be talking about what that means, what are his odds, what's the strategy for announcing so early, and where we're going to go from here. Also, some celebrities are coming out against Candace Cameron Bure because she has started this new group for Christmas movies, and they focus more on like a biblical aspect. She was like doing all these Hallmark and Lifetime stuff, I guess, and they decided to start doing stuff that was LGBT focused and stuff. So she decided to start this Great American Family network, and she was asked if they're going to do some LGBT stuff, and she said they focus on traditional marriage, and people are mad. People are mad. So I want to talk about that because I find it interesting. I find it interesting how much people they think they're so on the right side while they're just bullying someone for their beliefs is really the case. And Hillary Burton from One Tree Hill, who played Peyton, she called her a bigot. And I'm just like, but you're the bigot though. So we'll get into that and some other things as well. But before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blackteennews.com. Please check out different content that we have on the website, different articles that we have on there. I did drop one this morning about the whole Trump announcement that's on there, so you guys can check that out. I dropped a pro-life article about the fallout from the midterms, so go ahead and share that one as well. Please check out different videos I have. Thank you guys for sharing, for following me across my different social media platforms. All my handles are at Black Tea News, or some of them are at True Black Tea, but most of them are at Black Tea News, black like the color, tea like the drink. If you enjoy what I do, please consider leaving a donation at blackteennews.com/donate if you would like to support. I do an announce, and I will be announcing and talking about this for some time. Now, I've been talking about how I've been working on a book about abortion, and particularly, it's every time I have a discussion, I may say nothing but secular stuff, biology, etc., and someone will bring up religion, and then they'll just start taking scriptures out of context, saying the most ridiculous things. So I've written articles about it, but I'm like, you know what? There was so much that I decided to write an entire book. But it doesn't just focus on theology; it does also focus on biology and philosophy, and also some of the exceptions that people make. It focuses on not really having a condemnation for these women, but having knowing that they can be redeemed, and realizing that there's been a manipulation of people who are so gung-ho about abortion, and also looking at the societal harm, also the necessity of moral absolutes. There's a lot in it that it goes over, and I think people will really enjoy it. So anyway, finished the cover the other day. So my awesome sister, my youngest sister, Tina, did the art for it, and I think it looks great. So if you guys want to go to blackteennews.com, there's a book tab, and if you want to enter in like information for updates, you can do that. If you follow and have entered in your email and stuff for regular like alerts, you'll get alerts and stuff there too. But I'll be excited when I officially put it up for pre-order, and excited when it eventually launches. But you guys can stay up to date. I plan to do some events for it as well. So I'm really excited about it. I wrote it because I saw that there's a need, and after the midterms, there's definitely a need. So especially seeing so many like pro-choice churches is disheartening. But theology all day long, they don't have a leg to stand on, and I'll I'll debate them, I guess, to the end of time if necessary about it. So just wanted to alert you guys all to that. And if you're interested in having any sort of events at your church or school or anything related to that topic, you guys can fill out an interest form on my contact page, and I love to set something up. So also check out different merch that we have at blacktnews.com. We still got the pumpkin spice latte mugs. If you're interested in that, we got My Money by Business. You Are Not That Special. And of course the goat t-shirts, and we got those also in hoodies, and we do have them in different colors. So go ahead and check that out at the website. So go ahead and see what's on the website. Also want to thank Bright Mission Pack. I'm in their studio today. If I say something today that triggers you, I don't care. I don't care. It does not work like that. They just like to uplift conservative voices. So I do appreciate being here, talking to you guys, and that you guys view and you come along. Okay, so let's jump into it. You guys know that I like to start off with something humorous every show. So Tudor Dixon, some people were annoyed and that she had tweeted this the other day, but this was laugh out loud funny to me. And maybe you got to be like in the Midwest or somewhere where this is a problem. But she said, the longer I live in a blue state, the more I understand why the deer here throw themselves in front of our cars. so Tudor Dixon just lost to Gretchen Whitmer for governor, and so people are like, oh, that's real mature. I'm sorry. Look, it's a good joke. It's a good joke. Because the deer are crazy. As a matter of fact, I was driving out the other night, and a little, deer just, it's always like nerve wracking. Especially when they'll come out in the middle of the day too. It's not just like at night where they just test all God's patience and love for for them, darting in front of the road and darting in front of your car. They'll do that in broad daylight, but it was dark, and it just waltzed across the asphalt, and I'm like, bro, why do that? And then you don't want to kill the thing with your car, but you also want to not die. And it was a little one, so I guess I would have been okay. I suppose, but I'm just like, bro, why do you do this? Why do they all do this? So some people did think that was immature, and some people were like, oh man, they're admitting that Michigan is a blue state, like, oh my gosh, they're giving up. Yeah, people who are honest can admit that Michigan is pretty much a blue state. And you might be saying, well, how is it possible that Republicans have had control? Well, it's there are more of them than there are of us. Not everyone is always motivated to go out and vote. Usually if turnout isn't fantastic, the Republicans can like win the big elections. But the House and the Senate, like state House and Senate, how the maps were kind of situated before, and because so much of the population is centered in a like Wayne County ish area, how the maps were situated, it just wasn't. We just had a better shot at always kind of taking control, but because of the long term plan that they had to have this particular committee remake the lines, and they dragged a lot of their Democrats into other areas. They had a map that was more favorable to them, or gave them a better shot, I suppose. And they changed a lot about our election process in the past couple of years. They gave them the win, but yeah, it is a blue state, and we're gonna have to figure out something to save our state, because it is blue. It tilts blue. It's just the truth. But I thought it was funny. It was funny. Um, okay, let's move on. Let's talk about Trump. So last night, I don't know how many of you actually watched it, but Donald Trump went ahead and announced that he's running for president. Now, people saw that he had filed with the FEC, and they're just like, okay, it's legit. He's going to do it. So there's some people who are pretty sure, pretty certain on top of certain that he was going to announce yesterday. He did so at Mar-a-Lago, his home, to a crowd of supporters, and who erupted in applause. Of course, they're his supporters, and he had a speech that was more kind of um solemn or lax compared to like rally Trump. The rallies are super fun, even if you're not like a Trumpy or something. They're pretty fun. They're very long. It's a long investment out of your day for sure. If you decide to go to a Trump rally, especially if you don't have connections. But even if you have connections, it's a long day because you still got to get through security, and the traffic is bad. But if you're someone who doesn't have like access to a VIP, um, you're probably, I don't know. There's people who line up like 7 a.m. to be able to get in there by 4 or 5 or some, when they open those doors, like 5 o'clock or something, and then they start the pre-show stuff at like 6 ish, and then Trump is supposed to be there at 7, and he's late a lot of the times. Yeah, it's just a long day, and then he'll have like a long speech. He'll maybe be talking for like an hour or something. He was talking for over an hour yesterday. But the energy was just kind of different. And Jeb Bush Jr. actually tweeted out that it was low energy. Uh, but I think the reason, well, he was like teleprompter Trump, reading from the teleprompter, more subdued, and he's gonna have plenty of time to be rally Trump. He loves being rally Trump. Um, I think being more sort of subdued was a better way to go, because past couple weeks, not past couple week, but in the past week, people have been questioning some of his attacks on folks, and um, it just revisits the days when you're like, "Hey, did you hear what Trump tweeted?" And you're like, "Oh dear God, what did he say?" And you're concerned. Which, by the way, every time someone said those words to me, did you see what Trump tweeted on Twitter? I always braced myself, because I didn't know if it was going to be like a PR nightmare, or if it was going to be something that was laugh out loud funny. And a lot of times laugh out loud funny, but there are some times I'm like, oh gosh, why did you tweet that? But he's been saying some off the wall stuff about some people on True Social. The Glenn Youngkin is probably the weirdest one, when he like separated Young and Kin. He was like, sounds Chinese, doesn't it? Isn't that interesting? I'm like, is it? Why do you think it's interesting? That's really weird. A weird thing to point out. Um, and he's been coming for DeSantis, and we've already talked about this. So on top of losing the midterms, we did take the House. That's good. We thought we were going to be able to take the Senate, and we thought we'd have a bigger majority in the House. So um, overall, it was not the worst case scenario, I suppose, but it was underwhelming. And Trump did tout yesterday that so many of his people that he endorsed won. Um, when you endorse people who are going to win, or people who are pretty safe, or people who are, I know, incumbents with the system going, etc., like that's not as impressive as did your candidates who are like newbies, who are in some kind of swing seat. Like, can you move the needle by your word? And you know what? I don't think there's not a ton of people out there that I think their endorsements are going to move heaven and earth like that. Really, people, I'm from a different school of thought from a lot of people who are just like, oh, endorsements mean everything. I think endorsements only mean a lot in the case that you don't really know the people who are running. Like if I endorse someone in my circle of family and friends and they don't know who the candidates, like, my endorsement will mean a lot to them if I tell them how, like, hey, you should vote for this person, you should vote for, they're solid, they're good, they're educated, whatever. um but in the case of primaries, I think that it's obvious that Trump has a lot of kingmaker powers and can move the needle and push people to go in a particular direction. Is his does he still have that mojo as far as like the general election? I certainly didn't show up this one. I guess we can put it. And despite him saying that he had all these successes, um, there were still some key crucial races. Like, people keep saying in my comments, like, "Well, Trump did this many, and he did only a certain amount. He got this many people out of this many, like a near perfect record." And I'm like, I could name 4 people off the top of my head in Michigan who he had in his endorsement, and they didn't pull it out. There's Tudor Dixon, there's Christina Caramo, there's Matt Perno, and I voted for them. I wish that they had won over the three-headed Hydra in Michigan. Um, and then there's Gibbs, who the Democrats actually spent money on in the primary to get people to raise his name ID, to convince more Republicans to go out and vote for Gibbs over Peter Meyer, because Peter Meyer um, voted. Well, they redistrict that area, so it was going to be a harder race to win anyway for a Republican. But Peter Meyer voted to impeach Trump, so he was going to have more of an appeal to independents, or maybe moderate Dems, than the Dem candidate. So they wanted to make sure that John Gibbs, a Trump endorsed person, was the nominee, because they figured in the general he'd be easier to defeat. So what they did, and we covered this on the show, they had an ad that was like, "Oh, John Gibbs is too radical for West Michigan. He believes in the police and education, and he's a patriot." Like, the commercials were, I'm exaggerating just a tiny bit. Like, that was basically the gist of it. Like, you watch that commercial, and, like, the intent was for people to go, "Well, that sounds actually pretty good. Maybe we should go vote for John Gibbs." So it was an attack ad, but it wasn't really an attack ad. So the Democrats did this with a couple of different people, and they got them through the primaries, and all of them who they invested in ended up losing. So I guess it worked out in that regard, but it was a really crazy strategy, which Peter Meyer did complain about, because Peter Meyer said, how can you guys say that, oh, people like me, like in private comp, say, oh, he's the good Republican, and then you vote to try to get invest to get someone like me out? It's because they just hate you if you have an R in front of your name. It's That's just how it is. Like, we are so tribal right now, and it is unfortunate, but that's how it is. If I've said this many times, if I was concerned about someone so much that I was saying that they were a threat to democracy, etc., I would not try to get them through a primary. I would not try to get them through a primary. Um, Haley Stevens is my congressperson, and well, not currently, but she will be. Um, and she had a debate with Andy Levin, who's, I don't like either of them. Andy Levin is far more progressive. So I was like, well, I hope she at least beats him. I didn't say, man, I hope Levin wins the primary, because I think that'll be a better candidate against Ambrose, because Levin is so radical, which how things are in my county, people would have just voted for Levin anyway. Um, but I would have rather him lose to Stevens, who I still don't like. I still want her to lose. She still has very radical policies, but she's not quite as radical as he was. So that was the better scenario. So I think if you really care about your community and the people around you, you wouldn't risk. If you really had an issue with some people, you wouldn't want them to make it through the primary just so they could lose in the general. Like, at the end of the day, even if you lose, you don't want it to be like worst case scenario. if things don't go your way. So point in saying that is they don't actually think these people are such a big threat to democracy. And other people pointed it out, but as Peter Meyer was complaining about these folks, then you had like the bulwark with Bill Crystal and other folks coming for Peter Meyer, and they're like, well, the real problem is that the people who you represent actually want John Gibbs. So it's like, oh, so you're just, it's not just the Trump is the problem. It's not just that John Gibbs is the problem. The problem is just the Republican voters, period. And you just hate them. You just hate them. So this contempt that people have for the voter, by the way, is why so many people gravitated toward Trump in 2015 when he first announced and onward, and why so many people will continue to fight for him, even if there's other people who rise up in the pack, because people genuinely feel like he cares about them. So as long as people still feel that and still feel like he's fighting for them rather than himself or his ego, um, he'll have a ton of support. And Trump, if it's a crowded field, which I don't know if it will be a crowded field, I think people really got that feeling in 2060. Well, I think right after midterm, people were saying it's going to be like a crazy, you know, midterm primary, similar to it was in 2015. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if that's the case. And I don't know if that's the case because I think it is very strange for Trump to announce so early. I think he figured that he would have more um, prominent wins under his belt when they kind of started having decided to make this announcement. But I do think that at this point, there's people who are voting in leadership again, which Trump, he's had his hands in different places forever. Not forever, but basically since he's been in power and even out of power. He's had his hands in different local politics or party politics, certainly in the Michigan Republican Party, the people who won our primary, the all that stuff. He's had his hands in it. So maybe him jumping in so early is to still test people up against in the Republican Party and the people who's heading it and the people who are in charge or trying to be in charge, testing them against people who are still so gung ho with Trump, and making them come to a head and still decide to be loyal. Because people are so devoted to Trump that if you are like, I don't know if I'm feeling him, they feel like, well, you're just not a Republican, you're a rhino, like you're a Republican in name only. Or even if you say, hey, I think there was some shady stuff that happened in 2020, but I don't know about like actual like enough fraud that it like legitimately changed the outcome of the election. If you say something like that, you're a rhino. There's people who are so devoted to that. So um in in Michigan, I don't know how the primary how the leadership race is going to go. But there's still a lot of people who are delegates who I would say very, very strongly in Trump's field. So and there's not a lot of time because the convention I think would be, I think it's in February, if I'm not mistaken. There's just not a lot of time, especially with the holidays coming up, for people to persuade a lot of these delegates in a different direction. So I think Trump is trying to still say I'm in charge here and I'm holding all the keys, and recreate what's basically been going on for the past couple of years. So I think to be crass, he's like a dog pissing all over his territory. And I think that's, and it's not even just about him saying, hey, I'm out here, I've declared, I dare you to declare against me. I don't even think it's all about that. I think it's also about getting people in power who will be loyal at a local level, and then people who aren't necessarily on board to still feel like they can't have an alternative because they'll lose power. I think it's a bigger, some people are very puzzled. I think it's a bigger power play than people are giving him credit for. Um, Now, in the long run, is that going to work against all his other competitors who might jump in? Um, the other competitors, Ron DeSantis is, I think Ron DeSantis is the only person, and it's still quite a bit of ways until the primary, right, for 2024. We're a long way out. Trump announced super early, and who knows if DeSantis will or won't end up announcing. But there's got to be fundraisers and all kinds of other different stuff to get to that point to see if there's a viable path. But it's the best route probably for him. People are like, he's got to stay in Florida. He's gonna be termed out. He can be in there for 2 years, and then he's gonna be termed out in 4. So people are like, well, he can wait till 2028. The momentum is kind of with him now. I mean, we'll see how he governs the next 2 years, and we'll see how the race goes. But when it's your shot, I don't think you don't purposely miss or not take it. So people saying he should wait, I don't even think that's good advice. If you were him in his shoes, is that the advice that you want to hear and you want to take when you're like 2 years out of not doing anything? I don't think that's good advice for him. He's still got to wait and prepare. But I just don't think that's good advice for him. Other people thinking about running, Mike Pence, don't think there's even a snowball's chance. And it's not because, and I'm not saying that because I have disdain for Mike Pence like a lot of other people do, but people would say, hey, we can't impeach Trump because Mike Pence will then be the president. And they would say, and he actually believes in all these conservative things. People really, really, really disliked him. I can't see where the country is right now that if he would appeal to, people with ours next, would go out and vote for him. I think, I don't know how many of the Trump base would suck it up and do that. But all these soft Dems moderates, would they go for Pence?
With the drugs they sell, not to mention
it would really
families.
depend. It would really, really depend. But I wouldn't put money on it. I certainly wouldn't put money on it. There's Nikki Haley who's thinking about it. And you'll have some like more establishment moderate Republicans who might throw their hat in the ring. But I think honestly the only person worth talking about is this matchup between Trump and DeSantis. I think that's the only one that's relevant. Again, a lot of things can happen. A lot of things can happen from now till when you have the Iowa caucuses. I think they're the only two worth talking about. If Trump is kind of on his best behavior and focused on attacking Biden, and because I think for the most part DeSantis will just continue governing, and if Trump just keeps throwing like bombs or whatever at DeSantis, it's not going to make him look good. But if Trump's on his best behavior for all this time, I think that'll look good for him. And if he continues to build on what he had before, I think it'll make a harder case for someone to jump in. But I don't think there's going to be a crowded field. Now, if there is a crowded field, that will only benefit Trump. Like it did in 2015. He just had like a plurality, but he was the biggest, gorilla in the race or horse in the race or whatever analogy you want to use. And he was able to get enough attention. And then he had all the free media because people were fascinated with Trump. And then there was also like a plot, like Hillary Clinton's strategy was literally to have Trump be the nominee, and she could be, again, betting on someone who you don't really want to be president to win the nomination because you think that they would be easier to defeat. So that was her goal, and it didn't work out for her. Didn't work out for her, obviously. Didn't work out for all the Democrats who were crying that night into their left, just their leftist tears flowing. So again, that's not a great strategy. Mess around, you'll find out, I guess. And they did. They did. But an interesting thing, I don't see Trump dropping out, though. If he starts on this path, I don't see him dropping out. Like, he would need to be defeated. And I guess you never know, but it would be interesting because the media would obviously want him to be the nominee. All these grifters would want him to be the nominee. There's a lot of people who were like flipping out yesterday in PR saying, Trump incited the riots and all this other kind of stuff. Like the headline, there were some not great headlines last night as people recall Trump and how much hate they have for Trump, but he was also ratings gold to people. So the media will want him. The Democrats want him because they think he's a better nominee to run against, and he's going to inspire people to go out to the polls because people hate him so much. People are going to give. They already started fundraising for it, so they're happy. The media's secretly happy. The grifters, like the Lincoln Project, are happy. These people are very happy to have him run, especially run all this time, and then to ultimately be the nominee. But can you imagine if he kind of sucked up all this time and energy and stuff, and then he wasn't the nominee? That would be interesting. I don't think that's his plan. It's just someone is like, oh, Trump is actually playing 26D chess or something, and he's really gonna run for all this time and then catch him off guard and endorse DeSantis. I don't think that's the plan. But it would be fascinating if they devote so much time and energy to Trump, and obviously making it known without saying that they want him to be the nominee, and then he doesn't end up being the nominee, and then they'll have to deal with someone else. Now, I just want people to know, there's a lot of toxicness associated with Trump and how much people hate him. It doesn't matter what Republican ends up being the nominee; they will hate him too. There's already articles that are like Trump is actually worse than DeSantis. There's already articles about it. And they'll say that he's actually the traits of Trump that people that are toxic that people love, but it's more refined. So he's actually worse because he's going to govern and do things too. So they will hate them. Now, I don't know if there can well, I'm sure someday, but the level of hate that these people had for Trump was just astronomical. No, but they always have hatred for these Republicans, and they will hate whoever runs because they're defying the system they're running, etc. Especially if you're running against someone who wants to win. How dare Trump, their opinions, him be the celebrity they all loved and adored. Everybody wanted to be on The Apprentice. Everybody wanted to go to Trump Tower. All these rappers writing songs about Trump, blah, blah, blah. How dare he actually run? How dare he run as a Republican? And how dare he have the audacity to really try to campaign, to build coalitions? How dare he do all those things? And how dare he win? They never got over him winning. Not just because he won, but just because he defied their whole system. Republicans can win sometimes. It's which Democrats, they don't accept defeat. They just find ways to undermine. But they never really were okay in the least bit with Trump being president. And you remember what those years felt like. I mean, it felt good for our pocketbooks and all that other stuff. But the nonstop commentary on the news and the lies and other stuff that people throw at them were just amazing. Just amazing. I don't know if they'll match that sort of energy for somebody else, but they do have plenty of hate to throw towards someone else as well. And DeSantis is someone who will fight back. So people like that. Now, there is an area where Trump is superior, or at least proven, which is actually very important, in the realm of being president, which he focused quite a bit of time on, which is foreign policy. And so this friend of mine who I go to church with, and when we talk like, oh, Trump, DeSantis and stuff, he's just like, he would rather take his shot with Trump because Trump has had these good foreign policies. Like in a perfect world, you wouldn't have to worry that much about who the president is, et cetera, as far as domestic stuff, and stuff would be very local. That's not really how our lives are apparently right now, but you know, in a perfect world. But in a way that you really do need a president to shine and have good policy is foreign policy. And Donald Trump had very good instincts. And there have been different advisors who are Democrat who have admitted that if Trump was president, then the stuff with Putin and Ukraine probably wouldn't have happened, which Trump mentioned the other night. So he played it strong, you know, to his defense, talking about foreign policy, because I mean DeSantis does have, you know, legislative legislative experience. He has governing experience, but as far as the world, you know, stage like that, Trump is he has the upper leg. He just does. And there's not going to really be many other Republicans who can run who are going to have that advantage on him. Now, you could say Mike Pence in a similar sense because he was there, but again, too many people don't like him. Um, so foreign policy, Trump really focused on. And one thing about his speech that was really good about him focusing on foreign policy is he was talking about how Democrats are so obsessed with things like climate change and the ocean rising, you know, like a quarter of an inch over like 100 years or something. I'm exaggerating. I think I am. about and they're like very concerned about a degree going up in like 100 years, something like that. Um, but they're but we have like a threat of nuclear war like hanging over our heads with the Russia situation, which by the way, there's big news yesterday because a missile hit Poland and apparently two people died. And so people are like, oh my gosh, this could trigger, you know, NATO and go into war because of this. And World War III was trending, nuclear war was trending, and turns out that it was not like a Russian, like Russia didn't shoot it. It was Ukraine who had shot it. So and I guess there's an accident or something, but people were so ready, like, oh my gosh, like this is it. This is the end. We're about to like big war. So things are dire. And then Joe Biden will go to like he went to some donor meeting, just casually mentioned like, yeah, we got nuclear war. It's like, excuse me, sir. But these are things, as Trump said, were unthinkable a couple of, you know, years ago, because Trump did have things handled. Like you could say he's a madman, but he was a madman who um, had an interest of little intervention, which attracted a lot of people to his campaign, because people were sick of the forever wars. And he had like a history of being like not for like the forever sort of wars, and he wanted to pull out. But if he had to act on something, he was like, okay, we're gonna blow up stuff, and we're gonna be brutal, and we're gonna do it quick, and we're gonna get out, and we're not gonna spend all this time there. So also he had like the Abraham Accords, and so he's had some really good victories. And even how he criticized the Europeans for relying on Russian oil. Like, there's so many good instincts from Trump with the foreign policy stuff. And I don't know how many like of his worst impulses people had to like walk him off of a ledge or talk him down to, etc. I'm sure, yeah, maybe that had to happen a lot. But as far as what we know and what we've experienced, he's got the upper hand with foreign policy. So talking about that and sticking with it, what was really good. And I think that's going to be, I don't know how sexy foreign policy is to a lot of people as far as them making a lot of decisions. I mean, when Bush like had to have his reelection, that was like everybody was talking about it. Um, but I, as a president, if you're running for president, I do think that's pretty important. So he does have an advantage in that area, and it's better if he talks about if he's up against DeSantis that those are the strengths that he should focus on, as opposed to like COVID or something. Like when he came for DeSantis the other day, he mentioned like COVID and locking down, and I'm just like, Florida was not locked down for very long. And when other states decided to open, Trump criticized people for opening too fast. He like just wasn't consistent on that. So he's not going to beat DeSantis out on that for sure. He didn't mention anything. I'm pretty sure he didn't mention anything about Roe v. Wade being overturned, which I don't know if that was a mistake. Some people are like, "Oh, there's so many accomplishments. Maybe he didn't get to it." Well, nominating 3 justices that led to the overturning of something that historic is a pretty big deal. And I understand that there's some Republicans that are, I know, still reeling about it, but it was a bad ruling that needed to be overturned. There are some parts in the country where people are going further extreme, but there's other parts where these children are being saved. So that's a good thing, obviously. Um and it's also just a huge inhumane injustice that we need to fight for regardless. And having apathy for this particular topic isn't going to make more Republicans. Is it going to get more Republican votes? It's just going to create more Democrats. It just really is. And we do have a moral duty to continue talking about it. I'm like, if Republicans aren't going to continue to be the party of abolition, why are we even here? If you're not going to continue to be the party that fights for um just the just to live up to what the Declaration of Independence did, like back when we were formed for the purpose of abolishing slavery, so all men can be created equal. Well, how about all men and women be able to have the right to life, to not be, which is the right to life. Another way to say that is the right to not be violently killed. So if people are just going to abandon them, like, why are we even here? Why are we even here? So I want people to realign and get their priorities straight and just learn to better have conversations and discuss. I like if you're in a very blue state, you got to be smart about who you put up and what policies you put up, etc. But I keep saying this from today until election day, it's on us to have these conversations and debate with people and try to change the culture. And so Republicans shouldn't just give up on the stuff. And like in Michigan, we had Prop 3 that ended up passing, which is an awful radical bill. It's egregious that what's actually in it versus what's on the ballot was so different. But the churches tried so hard, people tried so hard. But you know what? There were some Republicans who didn't try that hard. Who it was like pulling teeth trying to raise some funds to get certain stuff out. It just was. And I had conversations with people who were just like, just basically let the issue go. So there was we worked our hardest, but there's other people who could have worked and matched that energy and tried to also make a difference as well. Um but frankly, maybe it was just too close to the overturning and people just had a lot of feelings, strong feelings, and the ads we were just outspent, you know, and there was just a huge information gap to work with. So we'll just have to keep working from our end to undo what's been done. But it's not worth just give. We shouldn't just give up and just have apathy for the situation and continue to let a million babies be killed every year. That's not what Republicans should be doing. Something that Trump also didn't mention, he didn't mention the First Step Act, which is a huge piece of legislation that they passed. But he did say he wanted to do the death penalty for people who sold drugs. So that was interesting.
Responsible for death, carnage, and crime all over our country. Every drug dealer during his or her life on average will kill 500 people with the drugs they sell, not to mention the destruction of families. But we're going to be asking everyone who sells drugs, gets caught selling drugs, to receive the death penalty for their heinous acts, because it's the only way. We don't need any more blue ribbon committees. We don't need, I don't like to say this, and I don't even know if the American public is ready for it. And a lot of my people say, please don't say that, sir. That's not nice. They kill 500 people each on average. And if you don't do this, in China, when I was with President Xi, I said, President, do you have a drug problem? No, we don't. He looked at me like I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, and he goes into because they kill them. So, Michael Knowles, who's with the Daily Wire, who's a bigger Trumper than probably out of the core, perhaps the biggest one, was like, how does this correlate and respond? Like, how do you square that circle with saying, hey, we need to execute drug dealers versus you let some of them out of prison, which are First Step Act. So people think it's interesting. It kind of, it's a pretty harsh position. But he took some hard lines in the sand with some other stuff when he first came down the escalator. So we'll see how that works out. But some people are like, are you going to clarify this? Because some people are like, are you going to execute people who sell pot? Or are you talking about fentanyl? I'm assuming he means like really hard substances. Fentanyl is a huge problem right now in the country with so much coming in across the border, and there's a problem with it here in Michigan. I have a relative who died from overdose from fentanyl. So I when people say drugs are a victimless crime, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. But I don't know how that one's gonna go over. I don't know how that one's gonna ultimately go over. I think it's just like something staying on the campaign trail. There's people who definitely agree with them and will be fired up about that. But I don't know if you should say every policy that sounds good when you've actually like been at the helm of the presidency. So we'll see how that ends up playing out. So yeah, it was a long speech. Most of his speeches are long. Interesting. But from like hearing it and listening to it, I have kind of more of an instinct or feeling. I want to say that he will be the nominee. Just like I can see it being more of a higher favorability toward him than someone else getting in the game. But I think there's only two contenders, and I'm not saying that that DeSantis can't overtake him. But I think he's playing a long game. So people are questioning like this is a bad strategy. I think he's trying to set up shop and establish dominance. Let people know like, hey, were you thinking of going elsewhere? That's not a good thing. I'm the only one at the table. you can't go somewhere else. And everyone who's for me isn't going to let you go somewhere else. I think this was a bigger power play than people are giving him credit for. So again, we'll see what ends up happening. Last thing I want to mention about this topic is that there are a lot of independents that just aren't feeling Trump. And I mentioned this in my article. You guys can go to blacktnews.com and read it. But this fella here doesn't like Trump so much, and he's not going to support him. But what's interesting, though, is that Alex here has been targeted by the Biden administration. So this I don't understand, being so against Trump. I mean, he was literally targeted for them to take him off of Twitter, to be banned for like information that he was saying about COVID and stuff. The White House, Biden White House specifically, wanted him to be censored. So to say, hey, I'm an independent, and there's independents that won't support Trump. He's right. He's totally right. There's independents that just don't want to support Republicans in general right now, as long as Trump will have a foothold, because they don't trust everybody else. And that's just a reality. But it is weird to me that Biden is like the presumptive 2024 nominee. If it's not him, it's going to be probably someone related in his campaign, like his sphere, his administration. Kamala is very unpopular. If they're not going to pick Biden, I don't think they'll pick Kamala, but they're really kind of painting a corner too, because she's like their diversity hire. So who knows? They really like Pete. It could be someone within his administration, or someone from his administration will a lot of them will probably continue on into the next one if going forward. So it's very interesting that the presumptive nominee, or the nominee, or someone related to the nominee, is someone who came for you and wanted to censor you, a journalist, for asking questions, challenging the groupthink narrative, saying stuff that people needed to know. And you're like, well, I'd rather take that guy than Trump. And you're not going to leave your ballot blank. So that's wild to me. But if people feel that strongly, what can you do? But at the same time, I think that's something important for Republicans to keep in mind. I think it's important for Republicans to keep in mind. But I also don't think that we can live our lives saying, well, what are the independents going to do? Because you don't know exactly what you want to appeal to them, but you don't know if they're just going to screw you anyway. So you want to pick someone who is going to be good for the country, be a good representative of the morals and the values that you think would be good for the country, which I assume are going to fit what your party is pushing. Because if you don't believe it's right, why would you have it in your party and your platform, etc.? But you also want to pick a Republican who you think can win. So much to come. We'll be talking about this for a while. But he's back. He's back, and it'll be a fun, interesting ride, if anything. Last thing I want to talk about today is Candace Cameron, who is a Christian actress. Most people know her from Full House, but she's done a lot of stuff, like Christmassy, sort of wholesome things. And she's been attacked by the woke mobs because she made a comment about traditional marriage, as far as the sort of things that her new network is going to be exploring. So I'm going to be reading this from the Daily Wire. More celebs pile on Candace Cameron Bure for traditional marriage comment while daughter defends her. Several celebrities and a GLAAD spokesperson are criticizing Candace Cameron Bure for her recent comments on traditional marriage, while her daughter Natasha came to her defense. Bure caused an uproar earlier this week following an interview with the Wall Street Journal about switching from the Hallmark Channel to Great American Family. The 46-year-old actress discussed how Great American Family is better to fit for her professionally. My heart wants to tell stories that have more meaning and purpose and depth behind them, Bure told Wall Street Journal. I knew that the people behind the Great American Family were Christians that love the Lord and wanted to promote faith, programming, and good family entertainment. The comment that got everyone talking dealt with Bure's take on which storylines will feature on Great American Family. When asked if there would be any LGBTQ storylines in those projects, she replied, I think the Great American Family will keep traditional marriage at the core. Great American Family Chief Executive Bill Abbott agreed, saying it's certainly the year 2022, so we're aware of the trends. There's no whiteboard that says yes this or no, we'll never go here. Though neither one ruled out same-sex romance on Great American Family, their decision not to focus on those topics caused a media firestorm, with multiple stars and organizations weighing in on Burr's statement. Honestly, I can't believe after everything that went down just a few months ago that she would not only create a movie with intention of excluding LGBTQIA plus, but then also talk about it in the press. This is rude and hurtful to a whole community of people, pop star Jojo Siwa shared on Instagram. Burr's former Full House co-star Jodie Sweetin responded to Siwa's post saying, "You know, I love you." Um, that Jodie is the sister on Full House who was between DJ and the Olsen twins because they shared. Wasn't I Full House wasn't my show. My sisters really liked it. It wasn't my thing. Um, GLAAD president and CEO Sarah Kate Ellis also issued a statement reacting to Burr's comments. "It's irresponsible and hurtful for Candace Cameron Bure to use tradition as a guise for exclusion," Ellis said per Deadline. "I'd love to have a conversation with Bure about my family, our kids, our family's traditions. Bure is out of sync with a growing majority of people of faith, including LGBTQ people of faith, who know that LGBTQ couples and families are deserving of love and visibility." She called Burr's comments harmful and insulting the uh, LGBTQ employees as well as families with LGBTQ families, friends and family. So it's interesting all these people piling on someone for just their beliefs. You know, she made a professional decision to not work with Hallmark so she could do things that spoke to her beliefs. And it's no different than Hillary Burton, who was from One Tree Hill, who attacked her and called her a bigot. I'm gonna go ahead and read her comments and then continue the commentary. One Tree Hill actress Hillary Burton, and if you guys, she played Peyton on One Tree Hill many moons ago. Hillary Burton Morgan lashed out as well. "Bigot," she wrote on Twitter. "I don't remember Jesus liking hypocrites like candy, but sure, make your money, honey. You ride that prejudice wave all the way to the bank." So, she Burton talked about on Twitter how when she did Hallmark movies and stuff that she was pushing for LGBT couples, etc., blah blah blah, and they wouldn't go for it. And so she's triggered because there's like saying out in the open like, "Hey, great American family, we're not, that's not going to be the center of what we want." So she's just like, "You guys are bigots, you're terrible, and haha, this is the evidence and this is what I've been saying the whole time." And so she ended up deciding not to work with Hallmark because of because they wouldn't move in the direction that she wanted to go. And she even wrote how, since she's married to Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who played the father on the TV show Supernatural, he's been on The Walking Dead as Negan. He's the one who bashed in Glenn's skull with a baseball bat many moons ago now. So Jeffrey Dean Morgan is her husband, and so she's like, because he works so hard, I can decide what jobs I'm gonna take, and stick to my morals and my guns and my principles. But not everybody can do that. Um, and it's fascinating to me that she's attacking Candace for doing something that she herself did. She decided to make professional decisions about things that were important to her and stick with her convictions. But she's attacking Candace for doing the same thing. If Candace just wanted a check, she could just stay at Hallmark, continuing to work with this company that she's been with for a long time. Instead, she and Abbott have decided to go and create the Great American Family, and make this new network and to have these movies. It's it's not easy to start up from scratch doing something different like that, but that's the route they decided to go because they have their particular convictions, and she calls her a bigot for it. Well, I'm sorry, Hillary, you are the one who's actually a bigot. You cannot tolerate someone else's viewpoints or their worldview. So you're triggered and you're attacking this woman again for doing something that she herself already did. Everyone is not going to agree with stuff. And that's fine. but I don't understand why what she's referring to when she said, "I don't remember Jesus liking hypocrites like Candy," and she didn't like give any receipts as far as this goes on why she's a hypocrite. That I don't understand. So there are people who retweeted Hillary and were like, "Oh yeah, slay queen, you tell her off, blah blah blah," and they mentioned Jesus loved everybody, and so I had to break down some scriptures. I'm just like, yeah, Jesus loves everyone, because they're like, Jesus loved everyone, that's why he died on the cross. Which um, there's some Calvinists would like to have a chat, I guess, but um, Jesus, yes, he died for everyone's sins, so they could be saved so we could be saved from our sins. And I'm like, if you love Jesus according to Jesus, he said you will deny yourself if you want to follow after him. That's what he said. But he said, if you love me, that you'll keep my commandments. That's what Jesus said. You'll keep my commandments. You'll feed my sheep. That's what Jesus said. And someone else, I replied to, they're like, it's about your relationship. I'm like, it is about your relationship. But if you're having a relationship with God, and then you will, it'll be evident in how you decide to live your life. And people could say like, well, you got to be me, I got to do this. And there's people who, again, the Bible says Jesus to deny yourself. You got to crucify your flesh. There are people who are straight, who are single, who have to crucify their flesh because they're not married. And they can't just go sleep around with people, even though they may have inclinations and are attracted to people, maybe in relationship with people, that they can't act on certain things because it is sinful. And you can't engage in moral sexual acts. So I don't even know why people bring up stuff like that. And someone was like, replied and said, "Are you judging me? You know me so well because of a tweet." I'm like, no, I don't know you. I'm just telling you things that are in the Bible. And I'm like, if you're convicted by things in the Bible, I'm like, you gotta take that with God. That's got nothing to do with me. But I'm just like replying to to how what you think's in the Bible and what your viewpoint of Jesus is versus what's actually there. So yeah, I don't get that. But there's people who are giving her support, like Candace support online, and retweeted and was just like, why are you guys attacking, Candace? She's a good person. She's appears to be a moral person who's just living out her faith. And I can understand people being offended. That doesn't mean that you're right. You're entitled to your feelings, but again, Hillary did what she thought was best with her convictions, and Candace is doing the same. It's fine if you guys if they disagree. It's fine if people disagree and they can't come together on the particular issue. But like Glad saying, "Oh, you're using traditional as a guise for exclusion," and it's like, there's so much representation out in the world for LGBTQ plus, etc. There is an oversaturation of representation, and it's deliberate how much overrepresentation there is. So this woman left to do this Christian particular focused stuff, and you're flipping out because you can't get her network too. You greedy pigs. Like, when is enough? She left Hallmark. Hallmark had this hard line in the sand. They have compromised. So she has left Hallmark to do her own thing. And even that niche market, we're talking about Christmas Christian content. That is a niche market. It's probably very profitable for this time of year. I'm sure that's why they're doing it. It's not like they're launching Marvel films or something. It is a niche market. You could do well within the niche, but it is still a niche. And you can't even allow this woman to have her little portion of the niche. That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me. And you know what? It's bigoted to me. That's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like. I recall there was a case where there was a woman who had a floral shop, and she got sued by some of her customers because they were having a wedding, to gay men, and they wanted her to do like special arrangements. And so she said, you know, she couldn't do that because she's a Christian. And one of them came in, and who she talked to, and it seemed like they were okay with it at first. You know, like they're disappointed, but they understood. Next thing you know, she's got a lawsuit. And so, and again, these are customers, so it's not like she would not sell to them because they're gay. She just didn't want to, especially make certain arrangements for their wedding. So, one time, I think I was reading some comments. I don't know if it was Fox or somebody had posted a video covering the story. Maybe it wasn't Fox, I don't know. But I was on YouTube and I was reading through the comment section, and people were saying, well, her issue is that it just kind of seems like she was just tolerating them and she didn't accept them. And I'm like, oh, we've already moved to like stage 4 or, or something, where it was just like, hey, we just want to live our way, and you know, we just want to love is love, etc. Blah blah blah. No, no, it now it is, we want you to participate. We want, it's not good enough that you respect me, what I do, and and I respect you, and we live together and we coexist. You know, the bumper sticker that people put on the back of their cars. That's not enough. What we need you to do is actually join us. Or not literally join us where you have to be gay too, but I kind of, they're I don't know. The spectrum keeps getting so big. Who knows? But they want you to at least be celebratory with it. Like, if you're not like in the actual LGBTQ plus IIPX to the 10th power or whatever, you need to at least be an ally, and you need to show that you're an ally, and bend the knee and show fealty to House LGBTQ plus II whatever, or you're gonna get Jacaris, the dragon from Game of Thrones or something, and just roast it. Like, that's what it is. That's what it is. It's not just live your life. It's, how dare you think you're gonna have your niche market and make your traditional sort of Christmas Christian movies. How dare you? So I don't think they're really triggered by the fact that she called it them traditional, or referred to man and woman marriage traditional, and I don't see how that's at the least been controversial. But they're upset because it is a phrase, and they said it to just exclude, and they don't want to be excluded. They want to be everywhere, everywhere, and they don't want you just to tolerate, like that one commenter said, and had a problem with, like, how dare you just be tolerant of me? You have to accept me, and you can't make people accept. I mean, I guess you could bully them into saying stuff or whatever, but in their hearts and their minds, that stuff still belongs to them. Candace's heart and mind apparently belongs to God, and Hillary Burton, JoJo Siwa, all you folks, you guys are bigots, and you just need to get over it. She has her beliefs. You can respect that, or you cannot respect that. But don't be triggered because an actress from Full House wants to make Christmas movie. It's just it's just such a silly thing to argue and fight over, when you know you have like the biggest company in the world of Disney, who's like literally about to introduce new film cartoon with like a teenage gay interest, like they have their not so secret gay agenda. Everyone else is pushing it so hard, but you can't even let her have her niche. And I think that's telling. We'll see who else piles on. But a lot of these people, they can feel very passionate about it. Apparently Burton was like pushing it for a while, but a lot of these people also go along with the crowd with stuff. An example, um, Burton some time ago talked about how she had an abortion, but it wasn't an abortion. She had a miscarriage. But she referred to how she had to have an abortion for her dead baby because she had a dilation and curettage procedure, which you could have that and not even be pregnant. I mean, people have like those procedures, I think, for endometriosis, for example. So um it's so not the same thing. Like you can, even if they put it on paper, like it's ethically not even in the sphere of what everyone is talking about. And I don't know, it was really sad and a bit sick to want to be included so badly that you had a miscarriage and you're like, hey, I had an abortion too. It's like, it's a little weird. But when everyone just wants to be in the fad so bad, um you got a lot of people who want to play along and be picked, I guess. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. I'm running late, so I'm gonna go. But please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles that I have. Please go ahead and share that stuff. Please be on the lookout for some of the stuff I'm gonna release soon, like this book on abortion. God, of course, God is blatantly against abortion. I wrote this because I saw a need, and the need is just becoming more apparent. So I'll let you guys know when it drops. It covers theology, biology, philosophy, why we need moral absolutes, all kinds of good stuff. And I'll have more announcements and stuff in the upcoming weeks and days and so on. So just be on your toes. And if you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Whether it's a gift of $20, $50, $10, whatever you can do. I very much do appreciate it. Thank you guys for subscribing, following, all that good stuff. Take a moment, make sure that you're actually following, if you're subscribed, wherever you're watching, and hitting notification bells if there's any bells and etc. On YouTube, there are bells. I don't know what's going on YouTube, but 4 p.m. Eastern time, that's when I go live. God bless you guys.